For most of human history, there were no hospitals, no antibiotics, no painkillers, and somehow we survived anyway. Humans have existed for roughly 300,000 years. Modern medicine? Barely 200 years old. That means for over 99% of human history, people lived, healed, and gave birth with almost none of the tools we consider basic today. So how did anyone make it? Start with infection. Today, a cut gets cleaned and bandaged without a second thought. For most of history, that same cut could kill you. Ancient Egyptians, as early as 1500 BCE, treated wounds with honey. Modern science eventually confirmed why it worked. Honey has natural antibacterial properties, low moisture content, and a chemistry that actively fights infection. They didn't know the biology. They just knew it worked and kept using it for thousands of years. Willow bark is another one. Ancient civilizations across Egypt, Greece, and China chewed it or brewed it into tea for pain and fever. Turns out, willow bark contains a compound called salicin. Your body converts salicin into salicylic acid. That's the exact active ingredient behind modern aspirin. People were essentially taking aspirin thousands of years before anyone knew what aspirin actually was. But not everything ancient people tried worked. For every honey and willow bark, there were far darker gambles. Trepanation is one of the oldest known surgical procedures, and it's exactly what it sounds like: drilling a hole directly into someone's skull. Archaeologists have found trepan skulls dating back over 7,000 years on nearly every continent. Some patients had multiple holes drilled at different points in their life, and the bone had healed around the edges. That means they survived. Sometimes more than once. Nobody's entirely sure why they did it. Some researchers think it treated head injuries or seizures. Others think it was meant to release evil spirits believed to be trapped inside the skull. Either way, ancient humans were performing actual skull surgery without anesthesia, and people lived through it. Childbirth might be the most brutal example of all. For most of history, roughly 1 in 100 births ended in the mother's death. No sterile tools, no blood transfusions, no emergency surgery if something went wrong. Midwives passed down generations of hands-on knowledge entirely through experience with zero access to modern science. And still, humanity kept growing. So a lot of survival came down to trial and error, repeated across thousands of years, until certain methods simply worked well enough to stick. But some of it also came down to something even more basic: the body's own defenses. Fever, for example, isn't just a symptom of sickness. It's your immune system deliberately raising your internal temperature to fight off infection faster. Ancient healers noticed something important. Letting a mild fever run its course sometimes helped more than trying to stop it immediately. They didn't understand immunology, but they were watching the body do exactly what it evolved to do and learning, slowly, not to interfere. Diet mattered too, more than people usually realize. Traditional diets across different cultures, almost accidentally, ended up balancing exactly the nutrients people needed. Fermented foods, for instance, showed up independently in nearly every ancient culture. Korean kimchi, German sauerkraut, Ethiopian injera, all wildly different foods from completely disconnected regions, all built on fermentation. Fermentation naturally boosts gut bacteria, and modern science now confirms gut health directly impacts immune strength. Nobody back then knew what a probiotic was. They just knew fermented food kept people healthier, generation after generation, and they kept making it. Quarantine is another idea people assume is modern. It isn't even close. During the bubonic plague in the 14th century, cities like Venice required incoming ships to sit offshore for 40 days before anyone could disembark. 40 days, in Italian, is 40 giorni. That's where the word quarantine comes from. Centuries before anyone understood germ theory, people had already figured out that isolating the sick slowed the spread of disease. Here's what's genuinely wild about all of this. Ancient people didn't have microscopes. They couldn't see bacteria or viruses. They had zero understanding of cells or immune systems or antibiotics. And yet, purely through repetition, observation, and trial and error passed down across countless generations, they built an entire working system of survival. Wound care, pain relief, disease control, all without knowing the actual science behind any of it. Think about how many failed attempts that must have taken. How many methods didn't work, got discarded, and were quietly replaced by whatever worked slightly better. Multiply that process across thousands of years, across nearly every culture on Earth, independently arriving at surprisingly similar solutions. That's not luck. That's an entire hidden science, built without laboratories, without formal medicine, refined slowly through nothing but human experience and memory. Every person alive today exists because that system, primitive as it was, worked often enough. Because someone figured out that honey helped a wound heal. Because someone noticed willow bark eased pain. Because generations of midwives passed down knowledge that saved just enough lives to keep humanity going. You are the result of thousands of years of humans slowly figuring things out, one desperate guess at a time, long before anyone had a word for medicine at all. If uncovering the hidden science behind how we actually survived fascinates you, there's a lot more of it here.